Hello, 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 and welcome to our show. We are so excited to be here today as a part of the Manifesting and Inclusion Speaker Series. So, my name is Lee Miles, and I am one half of the Manifesting and Inclusion co founding team. And we'll get into introductions for a second, but we're so excited to have a wonderful guest today talking about how to empower scientists and impactful conversations in STEM communities. So, a couple things as we're heading into our show today. Number one, we ask that you engage with us. Our speaker absolutely would love if you react, if you share this conversation, and if you join a part of our community. So, down at the bottom, you can turn on your closed captioning if you're able to see or locate the CC button. As well, you will see some hearts, some hands, some reaction button, and that lets us know that you're not only enjoying the conversation, but that something resonated with you. So you'll see an insightful, a heart, a hand clap, share all that good love below. Next, you'll see or you'll be able to locate a right arrow that says share. Please share this conversation. If you're watching us now in 2024 or later in 2052, we ask that anything that's impactful, that really resonates with you, that you make a comment, that you share. Not to only let folks know that you're engaging in this professional development, but that you're a part of the community and having intentional conversations about how to manifest inclusion. So now that we're done with the show intro, let's get into some introductions. So again, my name is Lee Miles. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm a community advocate and I work around inclusive excellence spaces. I'll pass that off to my colleague, Dr. Laura Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. My name is Laura, and I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the other half of the Manifesting Inclusion team. We are so excited that you're here with us today, not only to hear from our wonderful speaker, but also just to get to know more about manifesting inclusion. So our purpose is to create community and bring people together to have conversation so that we can better understand not only all the different ways to think about inclusion, but how to make it happen. We want to see it happen in the real world. So to that effect, we have this speaker series. We also sometimes are able to present live at conferences, and we have a book project that will be coming out. And so in all of these ways, we're just really glad you're here to join the conversation. And I'm going to ask that our guest, Tamara, go ahead and introduce herself at this point.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tamara Poles. I'm founder and CEO of SciCom Consulting. And in a nutshell, what I do is what we do at SciCom Consulting is we train scientists how to communicate to the public and create opportunities for them to practice and hone their skills in science communication. But there's a lot more to it, and I'm going to have a big announcement too along with it because our name is changing. So I can't wait. Thank you so much for inviting me onto this show, and I can't wait for our conversation.
Wonderful. Well, let's just go ahead and get started. And we're going to ask you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you became passionate about the work that it is that you're doing now.
All right. A little bit about myself. So instead of doing the whole list of I was born in January, I am going to actually play a game with you first. So you guys up for a game? Even the people that are watching right now, are you guys up for a game?
Yes.
All right. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to play two truths and a lie. We all know the rules behind that. I'm going to say three statements. You're going to have to find the lie. So Laura and Lee, it's on you. The two truths and a lie. First one. I have a twin sister named Tamara. Second one, I played for the U.S. international softball team. Oh, well, one of them. And third, I interviewed Scary Spice on Huffington Post Live. Oh, yeah. And it's a fun way to get to know my background. What are you thinking?
So I'm going to assume that you're a baller and play softball. And I'm going to say you have a twin, baby? I don't know. I see a baller in you, friend.
Okay, so like that. So the baller is the true, and what's the other true? So what's the lie?
Scary Spice.
All right, Scary Spice is a lie. All right, what do you think, Laura?
That's what I was going to say too. I was going to say first two are true and then the last one's a lie. Just because I'll tell you a little bit more about me in a second. But yeah, that's my guess too.
All right, both of you guys are wrong. So First off, I do have a sister. Her name is Tamara, Tamera, not to be confused with me, Tamara Poles. Like sister, T-N Tamara Mallory, Tamara. I'm the youngest of 5 from Manassas, Virginia. And yes, my parents just really like the name. Or they ran out of names because I'm the youngest of 5. That is probably more likely. And the second one, so that is actually the lie. She is not my twin. My parents had 6 years to come up with my name. And then the next one that I talked about was I played with the U.S. International Softball team. That is true. So as I went in, so grew up in Manassas, Virginia, went to undergrad in Southern Virginia, and then I played competitive softball since I was 12. And then after I played in college, I was asked to play for one of the U.S. International Softball teams. And before I went out, I got a job at the Virginia Museum of Natural History. So I applied for a job before I left because I graduated, applied for a job, and I was like, well, I'm going to go play for the U.S. International team. And I went overseas, got the announcement that I got the job, and I was like, oh, well, I can't hang out and play with you guys that much longer. So I played one tournament. It was in the Netherlands, and I came back. And then worked at the Virginia Museum of Natural History as Nature and Outdoors Education Manager there, where I provide nature and outdoor educational programs, events, and festivals for them to combat nature deficit disorder. So kids could learn cognitively, physically, develop better physically, cognitively, and socially. And in that atmosphere, what happened was while having that job, I started working with the Children in Nature Network. And from there, I learned about the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. And while I was doing my program there, I kept working with the scientists and bringing the scientists out into the parks with me so that people could meet a scientist, because my background is actually bench science. So biology is my background, environmental science. Biology is my BS degree, and environmental science was my minor. And then, so when I worked at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, after that, I was the coordinator of virtual education. So I did all of this type of stuff before it was cool. I started in 2012 when the new wing opened, the Nature Research Center, and I was doing these types of programs. And I did several really cool programs like Lab in a Box, where I would mail lab equipment to school groups and we would connect virtually and we would conduct an experiment. So one of the programs that was like really popular was Jurassic Pork, Dinosaurs, the Other White Meat. And what I did with that program was I would mail out the wheat germ, and we'd extract wheat germ, and then we would talk about, like, we would pretend it was DNA from T-Rex, and we would figure out what the closest living descendant was. And I created several programs like that there, like the Teen TV program, where I trained teens how to communicate cool scientific content based on the research that was happening at the museum to their peers using digital media equipment. And that was a partnership between us and our digital media department. But the other program that I developed there was called the SMARTS program, Scientists Making Answers Relevant for Teachers and Students. And when I was there, I would work with the scientists there and then create programs. And then we used Google Hangout and Polycom and stuff like that before Zoom was a thing. So we used other virtual conferencing, video conferencing technologies to go into classrooms, and I would wheel the cart into a lab. So the kids, and we worked with 5th grade and up. So I try to work with K to grade. But yeah, so the students can actually see what a lab looked like and see diverse scientists in their lab and learn about cutting edge research. And Belly Button Armpit Biodiversity was like the coolest program out of that one, the most popular one, where we would mail swab kits to the students to the teachers, and the teachers were to swab their belly button, their principal's belly button, and their PE teacher's belly button, and we would culture them, and then the students got to see learn about good and bad bacteria, and learn that it's all on us and it's okay. So from there, that was what triggered my love and my passion for science communication. And I started creating like more trainings and working more with the researchers, and I did all these other programs where kind of made me train them and provide them with a spotlight and let more people see the breadth and depth of STEM, and also different types of people in STEM. And I really love that. And luckily for me, while I was at that job, Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center applied for a grant, received a grant from NCGSK Foundation to start the first statewide science communication training program. So you can only imagine how many emails I got that day. So I worked there, and I started a program called the Impacts Program, where I trained scientists how to communicate to the public, and we put the scientists in the North Carolina Science Festival events. So we would seed each of the events with trained scientists because people enjoyed the events more when they interacted with the real scientists. So my job was to prepare them for that. And that was like the light bulb. I was like, okay, this is something. And that grant ended up getting to another grant, and I started working on the Futures program. But then I was like, this is really cool. So that's a little caveat into like how that got into SciCom Consulting and what it's going to be, which is Universal SciCom. But anyway, so that is that part. And the other part of interviewing Melanie B. So sorry about that. I just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit. So while I was at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, I got several emails from so many people saying Melanie B's publicist was looking for a Spice Girl fan to interview her on Huffington Post Live. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. And then they did some type of vote. I don't know. I didn't have Twitter then, and I don't have it now. So they did something, and they were like, yeah, you get to do it. I was like, oh. So I was the US representative, and they had somebody from the UK, and we both interviewed Melanie B. So yes, I did interview Scary Spice on Huffington Post Live. So, but yeah, so there's your two truths and a lie, and a more fun way of saying how I got here. And I stopped strategically so I can elaborate later on SciCom Consulting / Universal SciCom later on.
That's absolutely wonderful. I appreciate in thinking about how do we make science accessible. So one of the things you talked about was swabbing your belly button, right? And we don't even think about how many bacteria could exist in there. And just for our audience, when you and I first had this conversation, we talked about how there's this integrity and honesty that also has to happen in science. Some of these spaces need to have equity. And so, can you talk to us a little bit about why STEM, why communication, and what are some of the gaps that exist that specifically folks should think about being inclusive about when it comes to scientists and science?
That is an excellent question. So, and also the reason why I built SciCom Consulting, which will soon be Universal SciCom, is I train scientists how to communicate to the public, because verbally, that is how we're able to reach people more quickly and building trust, because you have to be there physically. Or it could be a TikTok or anything else, but people still have that bond because they are seeing you. And not everybody has time to read whatever publication that you did, or has the ability to read said publication, because there's, of course, paywalls, and also there's jargon behind that. So my passion is to train scientists how to communicate to the public and have them. The first workshop that I do is called the Science Communication Essentials. And that's where scientists learn, one, how people learn and how people remember things. And one of the main takeaways is making it relatable. And in doing so, they're able to tap into why people should care about what they're working on. And that's what I work with scientists on, especially if it's individual. I talk to them, and I continuously ask them a series of questions. But one of the main questions are, why should I care? Why should I care? Yes, you study this gene on this loci. That's great. Why should I care? As like you could be a father of two, or like just a normal community member. Why do I care? You study water quality in Flint, Michigan. Why should I care? Oh, this is why it's relatable. Oh, my water is not as clean. You can help. How? What can I do? So that's part of my passion, is helping the scientists reconnect with why they're doing this research. And I absolutely love when I'm talking to scientists and I have them keep continuing to say, because I keep asking them, why should I care, in different ways. And sometimes I get to a point where they're like, this is what I do. And then they go out, and then they have to do some research on their own. So then they go out, they go back home, do some research on like, okay, what am I missing? What is this overall point? What is that 50,000 foot view of my research? And then when they come back, this is actually this is the selfish part for me, is what I really like, is that light bulb when they come back because they've rediscovered why they love STEM. Because STEM is all around us all the time. We're always engaging with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Like if you are a cosmetologist, guess what? You're a chemist. I don't want somebody messing with my hair and makeup and not know about the chemicals that they're putting on me. If you're a cook, guess what? That's still chemistry. That's still STEM. That's math. So it's in everything. So that's why I chose and continue to choose STEM education and training these scientists to get into the public and share their enthusiasm for science, because so many people think that they can't do science, or it's not related to me, or it doesn't relate to me. I don't care. But I really want to empower the public and with the knowledge of knowing, yes, this is why I care. And yes, this is how I find valuable information. And this is how I find accurate information. So that's what I do. I prepare the scientists to go into the public and answer questions or share their enthusiasm for science and be comfortable with saying words such as, I don't know. But you know what? That is a very good question. And if I were to try and figure this out, this is where you can find credible answers. So empowering people to find the right answers to things, and instead of just saying, I don't know, and then leave. Or if it's a kid, guess what? You know what? I don't know that answer, but you know what? That is what scientists do. We ask questions. Have you thought about being a scientist? Because that's an excellent question. So, so that is actually getting at my passion of like why I train scientists in STEM. And it's to empower scientists to have a voice and share the cool stuff that they're doing with the public. And then getting the public to realize that science is relevant to them, and making sure that the messenger is diverse. So then people can see themselves as scientists, and kids can see that they can be a scientist too one day. So yeah, representation is huge. And also how they're delivering the message is also huge. So that's what I try to teach my scientists. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really fascinated / a little bit terrified by the moment in time where we are right now, where I think there is some pushback about communication of science, or even people's belief that the science that's being communicated is real, or as you were saying, relates to our lives in important ways. And I feel like this is becoming more and more important, that we figure out ways to communicate to the public the trustworthiness and the importance of science. So I just wonder what advice you have for this sort of difficult spot that we find ourselves in, as far as public confidence in science and science's ability to help people restore that confidence.
Right. I have multiple workshops for scientists. So if you're a scientist listening or a STEM professional listening, you can go to my website and check out these workshops that I have. You have to sign up for the essentials first, and then you can do these other ones, because a lot of my workshops talk about authenticity and how to gain trust. And one of which is you can gain trust by going into the community and asking them what they need instead of assuming. Like a lot of times, us as professionals, we get grants for doing stuff, and we're so used to just checking boxes. That's not what you need to do. You can't just helicopter and do the thing with this community that you just got the grant for and then leave. That's not how you build trust, and that's not helpful for the community that you just technically stole from. So what you do is you think about it differently. You're like, how can I build a relationship with this community? How can I get them to see me as a peer? So whether you look like that community, or you're from that community, or you're not, you still have to build that relationship. You need to go in with an open mind and ask questions. What can I do to help? You can't just assume that all of them need computers. What if you go to a rural area and they don't have a stable internet connection? Well, then they can't have those computers. So how are you going to be that resource for them? How can you guys help each other? So that's the first thing that I give as advice in some of my workshops. And then I go in depth in like how to do it. The other thing is, so one, connecting with them. And two, it's how you phrase things. There's one activity that I do that I talk about, clickbait. and buzzwords and things like that, because so many people want to say this is cutting edge or this is exciting and wonderful and blah blah blah, come over and see my research is awesome. But if I go to this your table, so this is actually this is from my workshop that I do for going to a festival and setting up a table and getting people excited about your research. So when I talk to my scientists and I'm like, all right, if I'm at a festival and you have a little science demonstration and you are competing with clowns, roller coasters, awesome food, and you're telling me to come over and play with this awesome thing because it's amazing and awesome, and it's not, you actually just told me a lie. Now that's not helping that truth part and that trust. So telling them, you can always just rephrase it just a little bit by saying, hey, guess what? I do this for a living. I think this is awesome. Why don't you tell me what you think? Guess what? I have an opinion. You're asking me for my opinion? Oh my gosh, I'm going to go over there and do this. This is great. And then I get to share it. This is cool. So like it's little changes in how you say things and how you phrase things to build that trust. And I also have a workshop that's called the importance of authenticity in science communication, because until we are embracing our own authenticity, whether it's our privileges as well as our what makes us authentic, we're not going to be able to reach the audience as deeply or as fruitful as what we're supposed to. So that workshop, I give them time to reflect on themselves and then realize, okay, this is where I'm coming from, or this is the privilege that I'm coming to this community with. What do I want to learn from this community, and how can we work together, and where can we start, and what programs can I do that still aligns with my authenticity? And usually it gets back to the humanity part. We all have families, we all have friends, food, we all need food, water, shelter. So looking at things that way and trying to reach people where they are, I think that is going to be the key to surviving the next few years. But yeah, and I really think places like SciCom Consulting, which will soon be named Universal SciCom. So it's the same place and it's the same URLs, don't worry. It's going to be so necessary to help scientists with that, because we definitely need to start building more relationships with the communities that we represent and with the communities that need it most. And we need to build that trust. So that is the best way I can think of that will help.
So we talked a little bit about some of the elements that are in programs. So we could think about a scientist being out on a boat, right? So there's a graduate student, there's a supervising professional, a lot of times who has a PhD or some other advanced degree. And sometimes there's these mishappenings that happen on the middle of the boat in the ocean, from prejudices to practices of exclusion to just that universal thinking sometimes and universal design. So, in thinking about all the things that happen in STEM, specifically in the practical pieces, what are some of those essential elements that create inclusive community and programs? And so, I would love to hear specifically around that graduate program, and
Mhm.
also some of those on the ground training scientists.
Right. So that gets at thanks for that question, because that gets at why I'm changing my name. So originally, when I started this endeavor and started my own business, I was like, SciCom Consulting, I'm going to hire some consultants because I'm very strong with verbal science communication and written, but I really want folks to really get with the professionals. So I want you, like, I'm going to highlight and elevate scientists that are really in the field and really doing science right and are really doing X, Y, and Z, help elevate them. And I was like, this is great. I'm super excited. But then I started doing the work and meeting amazing people. So I met two organizations, and I still work with these two organizations. One of them is Field Inclusive. Field Inclusive is also based in North Carolina. And I started working with them. And what they do is they provide trainings and workshops to help train PIs and scientists on how to safely take people out into the field. So when you're doing field research, like, to us, it's common sense. Oh yeah, you don't send people out past midnight, especially not women, to someplace random in the woods. PIs don't always think of that because they've never had to deal with that. They've never had to look through life with that lens. So what they do is they work on these workshops that do that. Then I later on met a gentleman named David Schiffman, and I worked with him in an organization out in Florida. And then I learned they study sharks. And then I was learning about what they do, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to work together. And I got to experience this safe science communication amongst each other on a boat. So there were sharks. We would reel in sharks, but it was so calm and so respectful. And they actually teach respectful science communication amongst peers. And they model, not only do they teach it, but they also model it. And what they do is they also do host these trips, and then they raise money to provide for undergraduate and graduate and high school students to get on these ships, get on the boat for no cost. And they're doing really good work. And while I was on that boat, I already was working with Field Inclusive. And then I met these other folks. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And if I'm going to be the one-stop shop of all things science communication, I need to blow up my dinner table and make it bigger, because there's these other aspects of science communication that I'm neglecting. And my whole thing is how to elevate organizations that are doing awesome work and how to elevate scientists that are doing awesome work. And I don't want the scientists to ever have to quit their jobs to fully do SciCom. I want them to still do the research because these are excellent scientists, but I want to give them a platform to be like, hey, you know what? I do this research, but I really want to talk about conservation. I want to teach other scientists how to properly speak on conservation. Guess what? My background is not conservation. If you want to do a workshop on conservation, I'm going to let you, and you can do it under Universal SciCom. So that is why I changed my name. I have awesome peers that told me my name was too small. If I just named it SciCom Consulting LLC for all the things I wanted to do, they kept saying, your name's too small. And then I met those organizations and I went back. Stephanie Page was one of the ones that was just like, yep, your name's too small. That's not it. That's not the right name. And then thought of Universal SciCom because all the skills that we teach are universal. You can apply them anywhere. It's for all scientists that are in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Also, you can even broaden that to, like I said earlier, your electricians, cosmetologists, things like that. Like, I really want to have a platform to highlight the breadth and depth of STEM and be a one-stop shop for science communication. And when we roll out the new website in January, it's going to be set up to where you go to the website and it's right now, it's still SciCom Consulting LLC.com, and you'll be able to go there next year too. It'll just be under Universal SciCom, but you can still see all our pretty faces on there. But it's going to be set up for science communication. You can learn it, and there's all of our workshops. Everybody has to take the essentials, the science communication essentials, because that is the building blocks that you're going to work from. And that, if you've done SciCom for 90 years, you're still going to have to take that class if you haven't done anything else, because we so quickly will forget the fundamentals. And as a softball player and as an athlete, it's super true. Even me, as long as I played sports and I played for the U.S. international team, I still would always forget. My dad would say, get back to fundamentals. Whenever I had a bad game, he would say, get back to fundamentals. Now I have someplace to point science communicators when they feel like they're off. Everybody took these fundamentals or / essentials of science communication. I can be like, okay, did you hit at how people learn? Did you hit at why people remember things? Did you alleviate jargon? Did you practice this at a bar or with your siblings or like where all these other places? All right, let's start from there and work our way to where we are now. So that's how I end up working with people and know where they're going. So once they have that, they can take all these other courses that we offer. If they take like all of the SciCom courses that we offer at SciCom Consulting, because there's a specific curriculum, they can then be called an impactor, and I can send them out into classrooms or events, places like that, so they can practice and hone their skills. And then for the people that are super pros at it, guess what? I'll be helping them get equal pay at these conferences, because so often women and minorities don't get paid as much as men do to be a keynote. And that's just something that we all know. But scientists should not be burdened with having to be their own advocate at the same time as doing their research and at the same time as doing this, because science communication so often is overlooked as its own profession. And it is. It is its own profession. It takes skills, it takes practice, it takes all of this stuff. So really they're bilingual. So researchers become bilingual once they become a science communicator. So but yes, so they get the learn it part for Universal SciCom. And then the next part is the do it. So that's what I mentioned earlier. You can go into a classroom, you can go do a keynote. This is you doing it. And we try to provide opportunities for you to practice. And then experience it. So these are the all-stars that have gone through, like I mentioned earlier, like Field Inclusive and Field Team and David Schiffman, all these folks. You get to see them do cool stuff. You get to see all of these like all-star SciCommers do what they do best and experience it, and then go back and ask them questions, because that's why the consultants exist. So there's a Meet the Consultants page where you can schedule a meeting with them and just like talk to them, ask them questions. Right now, since the page is in transition, all of it goes to an email. So I will drop the email in this chat right now, but it just goes straight to me, and then I do it individually until we roll out our main one, and then you can schedule individually with them. But for right now, you're gonna have to email me. But yeah, but that's no worries. We will work it out. And then we do have a workshop coming up December 18th. So you can actually, it's a virtual workshop. It's our last one. The other ones got booked, but right before this session, I was like, you know what? I will look in my calendar and see if I can find a day. So people that are tuning in and are interested, yes, you could absolutely do a virtual SciComm Essentials workshop. And that is like that basic, that's the first workshop. You could do that December 18th from noon to 2, and you can register for that online. But yeah, so those are the three. And then when we roll it out, there will also be podcasts from some awesome SciCommers that will tell you how to do it, how they're doing it, what their experiences is like, what are the experiences like in research, just in general, just resources and podcasts for people to listen to and get more involved with science communication. So hopefully that helped, and that's helpful for the people listening and answered your question.
Perfect. So I know a little bit earlier before we started today, we were talking about like kids and science centers and sort of ways to like help get people interested in science and to communicate it in a way that is exciting to kids, or that's motivating, or that harnesses that natural curiosity that kids have. So I wonder if you just have a picture of like, how could we, what would be the ideal way to like help have this wonderful pipeline from the youth to help bring inclusive and diverse and like the existing communities of youth into STEM careers and STEM areas? How could we do?
Right. So you can do that. So first off, museums and science centers are doing a great job at that. So are Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs. These are folks that work with kids all the time. So scientists don't have to recreate the wheel. They could either work through me or at SciCom Consulting, you can just contact me and I can be like, here are these people. Or you can work directly with them. So that is how you can get in with these students. For me, when I train scientists how to communicate to the public, the workshop that I do that's for informal environments such as festivals and like at the park and at the bar, things like that. Part of that is me getting them into these events that aren't actually science, because a lot of times you're preaching to the choir when you go to science related events, which are super necessary, super fun and amazing. But what I'm sneakily trying to do is get these scientists into a music festival, get them at a food festival, and then people can learn, like maybe it's a food festival, maybe it's a barbecue festival. And I have a scientist that wants to talk about spiciness and the science behind spiciness. Like, how cool is that? Because that's directly related to where these people are, and everybody eats, everybody likes music. So you go to these places, you go to where the people are. So the advice that I would give scientists is to come to me and ask questions. That's why SciCom Consultant exists. But if you want to do it solo, go to these events, go out to where these people are and ask them what they need and figure out where you can fill in. So if I was a scientist and I was not going through me, but I strongly recommend to contact me, I would, whatever community that you want to work with, say you said kids, and you're like, okay, I'm going to reach out to the YMCA. First, go to some of their events. You don't have to do anything. Just go and experience their events, because you won't know. You could do all the research in the world and Google all of the things, but it's not going to be as good as talking to somebody for 10 seconds or checking out an event for 30 minutes and seeing what they're capable of doing. Because a lot of times we have our own misconceptions and thinking, oh, they're going to need this and this and this, and that's why I'm going to come and save the day. They may not. And there's reasons why they're not doing those things. So go to one of their events, see what they're currently doing, and then meet up with maybe the coordinator or maybe one of the employees. If it's a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club, or if it's a museum, meet up with the coordinator of that event or somebody that works there and develop a relationship and chat with them and see how you can help and see where you can fit in. And I think that would be probably the best advice that I would give a scientist. But mainly, you can come to SciCom Consulting and we'll help you with that. And you can get trained. So when you do go and have these conversations, you'll be prepared. And when you do go to these like live public events, you'll not only be prepared, but you also have a hands-on activity to go out with these into these events. So
I was hoping we could take a couple moments to talk about some of those tangible pieces that we often find that happen in STEM. So we see barriers like race, education, gender, location, rurality, and yes, I just made that word. You know what I'm talking about.
but I know what you're
Um,
talking about, so it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
You're
you
good.
do. Yeah, you do. So what is a huge problem that you see that's happening right now, specifically in the state of North Carolina or the South? And how can we address that as community members? So not just SciComm, right? But also
Mhm.
as parents, as advocates, as members of our family who can support kids and young learners. So what are those problems and how do we address it?
That is an excellent question. I think one of the main problems is just access. People don't know what they don't know. And on both ends, families don't know what resources are out there. They're too busy. Who can do it? They have a full-time job and all these side gigs. Like everybody has a side hustle now. So it's just like, how do they make the time to do this? And then kids are in school all day, and then after school programs, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And then on the other side, the people that are able to provide these things, sometimes it's funding that's an issue. If they had more funding, maybe they can do more programs and they can do more. So mainly it's an access thing. I think it is. But I think that is one of the major barriers, is just having access and knowing. And that's why SciComm Consultant exists, because it's a one-stop shop. If you're a teacher hosting an event, or you want a scientist to come visit, go to SciComm Consulting. We can figure it out and pair you up with one. If you're a public servant, you worked at the Y or something like that, and you need somebody to come in and you need advice, maybe you want to build something, check with one of the scientists that works in that field. But yeah, there are a lot of specific barriers. And I think the main one is access, and the other one is representation, because a lot of us don't see ourselves as a scientist. And a lot of scientists don't get a chance to go back and reach out to the people that look like them or represent them. And to that, I really do try to train diverse scientists how to communicate to the public. So I train all scientists, but I do focus on all different types of scientists and try to provide access to all different types of scientists. And if I do have a scientist that doesn't represent the community, and then this is advice for people watching. If you are in a community and you're doing outreach and say it's STEM related and you don't reflect that community, whether it's LGBTQ, minorities in some way, then it's your responsibility and it's your opportunity to highlight and uplift people that are really doing this work. So if I am talking about, I don't know, chemistry, and guess what? There are chemists in your area, and then, or there are chemists that have found these awesome things. And then here's a picture, here's a name, here's a link to diverse scientists that are doing this work. More people are doing it other than me, like letting them know. So giving them that spotlight for 2 seconds, that can mean the world to somebody that is in that classroom, whether they're kindergarten to K to gray. It's going to mean the world to somebody that is part of that community. Because they're like, awesome, that person just took a minute and said, there are people that look like me that do this, even though they are not. So I think that that's part of our responsibility, is if we don't represent said communities, let's elevate them. What's 2 minutes out of the 30-minute presentation that we're going to give? So I think those are different ways. And I know that you asked me such a big loaded question. I'm like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I think that's low hanging fruit that all of us individually can do. One, it's access. So going to the community and seeing what that community does, and seeing where you can fit, and talking with them, not at them, talking with them and seeing how you work with them. And then also making sure you're elevating other voices in that community or in that field, at the same time, that may not look like you or may not have the same choices as you or orientation as you. I think those are low-hanging fruits that we can do.
So I want to take a moment before we shift into some question and answer to give folks an opportunity that if something resonated with you, we've got a number of people online, but if something resonated with you or you have a question, please drop that in the chat. And as you're thinking about your question, we also want to take a time to observe a moment of silence. There's a lot of war, there's a lot of feelings, there's a lot of spaces of exclusion and inequity that's happening in this world. And so we ask that as you're thinking about your question, that we also take a moment to observe a moment of silence. Thank you all so much for your time. So, if you have questions or comments, please take a moment and drop those below. If you have any reactions, give us some love, give us some claps, celebrate with us. But we'll head over to Dr. G for our next question.
I actually just had a comment that came out of what you were just saying, which is thinking about the role of educators in access. So for example, when I think about applying to college or college students applying to graduate programs, that there are choices that get made, right, by admissions committees. And I think it is incumbent upon us to really think broadly about, like, to examine our own biases about who we think scientists are or who graduate students are, or, who should be in these spaces for learning and moving forward. And I think understanding that science and scientific inquiry can happen in a lot of ways and can sound different depending on asking the questions, but to really be wise in the way that we allow for that access, to really continue what you're talking about, which is then to have greater representation and more role models and more existing scientists that we can bring, to community fairs, or that we can come, see in their work in science centers or other spaces. So just a reminder that all of us have, like as a parent, I always took my kids to science centers so that all of us can think about, like, how can we open these doors of science to as many people as possible.
Right. And that you can go to community colleges. They have certifications there that are STEM related. So you don't have to go to a 4-year college and spend all that money. Not everybody has that money. And also how things have shifted and changed. Is the 4-year degree the same as it was 10 years ago? I don't know. I can't answer that, but it's just a question. So looking at your community colleges, looking at people that have these certifications that are still STEM, they're still scientists, they're still in it, and that's accessible. That's your neighbor. That's the cashier that's getting the certification in X-ray tech or whatever. It's like, these are people that we can talk to and ask questions to. And while you were talking, I actually thought of another resource that people can use that a lot of people don't think about, is like resources like the LGBTQ IA like centers. You have DHHS, Department of Health and Human Resources. Like, I've used them in North Carolina multiple times because when I was doing programs, I started noticing my not my biases, because I was like, yeah, I'm reaching everybody in the rainbow and all the rainbow children and all the colors and all the things. But then I was like, who's not here? And you know who wasn't there? People that were differently abled. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why don't they feel like they can be there? I know they're in this community. So then what I started doing was I reached out to DHHS and I was like, let's do trainings, because I obviously needed it, on how to reach people that had different abilities. And when we do have someone that's deaf, hard of hearing, low vision, or blind in our classes, how do we adapt? So I started providing those workshops that were, I'm not the professional, so I had the professionals do it. I brought in DHHS to come in and talk to our scientists about how to do that. And then I learned. And so every year I started doing that because I wanted more and more scientists to be able to do that. So when I do my programs, I always think of who's not there? Why are they not there? Is it transportation issue? And does this require somebody to be able to get in a car and come here? Well, what if you don't have a car? Well, I probably should have that event there where most people are, instead of making them come to me. Or if I can get a grant, or if I have the funding to do it, can we get a shuttle and shuttle people from different communities to whatever you're doing? And then the next question I ask myself is, all right, if somebody is blind or deaf, can they still do this program? Why or why not? What can I do to change that? If somebody's colorblind, can they see this awesome, cool poster that I just did, that I made this game out of? Can they do it? Let's see. I don't know. Why? And you don't have to have all the answers. There's Google, and also there are people out there that do this for a living. So you can reach out to these folks and use them as a resource. So you're not alone and you're not siloed at all when you're doing this work. So, but yeah, those are some things that I think of when I'm trying to reach different audiences.
I love that. I think everyone should ask themselves that question every day. Like, who is
Right.
not here, and why, and what barriers can I help them overcome so that they can participate equally? So for other people who would love to keep learning with you or from you or connect with you, what are some ways that they can find you, in addition to Universal SciCom? What are some other spaces that people might be able to find you in?
Yeah, so Universal SciCom will also have Twitter. Well, not Twitter. We're not going to have Twitter. We don't currently have Twitter. We will not have Twitter, but we will have Blue Sky. But right now you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm going to drop into this chat where you can find us on social media and my email address. So if anybody needs to contact me in any way, at any time, you can. So you can find me online. You can go onto the website, SciComConsultingLLC.com. That will be true no matter when you do it. But after January, do not be shocked when you start seeing Universal SciCom pop up everywhere, because that is our new name. But you can still reach us at the same URL. So you can reach me there. You can reach me via email. That is my direct email address. It's not the info list. So there you go. That's my direct email address if you want to contact me. And I can come out, and I can also do consultations. So maybe if you are doing something, but you don't want to do a whole workshop, you can just ask me questions. You can hire me for consultations and things like that. I can come into your space and say your university goes into schools, but you want to make sure you're reaching your audience properly. I can look at what workshops you do or what your presentations are, and tweak them to make them more accessible for folks, and more relatable for whatever age age group that you're doing. Because I did neglect to say that I do have a bench science background, but then I did go back to school. My higher ed degrees are in education, curriculum development, and instruction. So that's where I'm applying all of this into SciCom Consulting. And into my own personal curriculum. So yeah, you can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Facebook and also Instagram. And next year I'll be on all those same platforms and as Universal SciCom as well. So you'll find us.
It was absolutely a joy having you here today. A couple things that I took away is that this work is important, not just for scientists, but also for families and also for community leaders, and thinking about how do we communicate in science? How do we communicate that there needs to be an increased access in STEM? And how do we make access accessible, right? How do we make these pathways like higher education and just how we're even talking about science to get it away from sounding like something that's really, really complicated to sounding like something that is really, really accessible and that can help us manifest inclusion. So it has been such a joy having you today. And whether you're watching us in 2024 or 2099, we appreciate you. If you would like to be a part of future conversations around manifesting inclusion, we ask that you reach out. You can contact us online here on LinkedIn at Manifesting Inclusion. You can email us at manifestinginclusion@gmail.com, or you can head over to our website that will be relaunching soon, as well as our book should be out next year. So thank you so much for for joining us today. And being a guest on the show. And we can't wait to see the amazing things that you're doing after this show. Tamara, if you could please drop the link to your upcoming workshop that's happening on the 18th so that folks can engage. And also feel free to drop anything or send us over anything so that folks can continue to engage with you as well. Do you have any last comments as we close out the show?
No, I just want to let everybody know that just doing the work is what matters. You're not going to be perfect right off the bat. There are resources out there that'll help you from organizations, mine, some local organizations. There's people that you're working with. There's also conferences that you can go to, and also Google, of course. So yeah, you're not going to be perfect, but you're trying. So any type of attempt to do outreach and engage the public is good. So don't put so much pressure on yourself. I also want to say thank you so much for inviting me on the show. This is fantastic. I loved it. I hope I get an invite back because this was so much fun. And I really do support all the things that you're doing because we parallel each other. We all need to chip in and do this work. So I'm so proud of you guys for developing Manifesting Inclusion. And thank you so much for giving organizations like myself this opportunity to have this platform. So I really appreciated the folks at SciCom Consulting really appreciate it. And I know the people watching also appreciate it. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
All right, that's all, folks. Like I said, you can follow us at Manifesting Inclusion to learn more about our upcoming streams for the rest of 2024. And also, we will be returning in 2025. So, if you would love to speak with us about how to be on our show, you can email us at manifestinginclusion@gmail.com, which you can find, or you can drop us a message over to Laura or I on LinkedIn. Again, thank you for joining our show, and we'll see you again soon.